Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This story took place in the mid-1990s, so I'm a bit fuzzy on the specific details, and of course names have been changed to protect the innocent as well as the guilty. On to the story. The characters are me, a manager, the cashier Maria, grabby customer, but you'll call him grabby, police officer 1 and 2, and the paramedic. Back in my 20s, I worked at a local hardware store that was just down the street from the city university, where I ended up being promoted to store manager. This was my college job. I had a small staff that included several other students, in particular a young lady cashier called Maria, who aside from being an employee, was also the girlfriend of a friend/classmate of mine, who happens to be the manager in a barbecue restaurant in the same strip mall with us. So I kind of looked out for her. She was the sort of young girl who drew attention from her looks and figure that tended to receive unwanted advances from random customers. This was typically dealt with by a passing comment of, "This is not a dating service," from me to the cashier. We had already worked this out, and I wasn't getting after her. I was just giving her an escape route. In this shop, the cashier station was basically a booth with 2 cash registers just at the front door of the store. The break room is in the back room, and you have to walk through the paint department to get to the break room. At her break time, Maria was walking back to the break room to relax and break out her books for class. I was making my rounds through the store, checking inventories and so on, when I heard the polite "excuse me", some muffled words I couldn't hear, and a more irritated "excuse me", not the kind like "please let me pass", but more like "what the actual hell did you just say to me?" Followed by, in quick succession, a scream, loud of noise like someone got the wind knocked out of them. A scuffle, thud, a loud crack, then a lot of unintelligible screaming. I and our floor salesman ran back to the area where the paint shaker was, to find a guy we will call Grabby, one of the maintenance staff from the university, laying on the floor, gripping his arm and yelling how Maria had assaulted him. "Call the paramedics, call the cops." Meanwhile, Maria was in shock, just repeating, "Oh my god, I hurt him. Please don't fire me." I asked my salesman to call 911 and tend to the guy on the floor. I took Maria back to the office and had her lay out the story for me, knowing that I couldn't capture audio, but I did have very good video of the paint department, as it was a high theft/shoplifting area. The store being in a strip mall was a popular barbecue joint. Right next door happened to have police officers having lunch. So the police response was officers were in the store before the salesman could even hang up the phone. Officer 1 was sent back to the office to interview me and Maria. He pulled Maria aside and asked her side of the story. Grabby, apparently as she was trying to get by him in the aisle, blocked her way and muttered to her in a threatening way that he was going to intimately assault her after work, which apparently prompted the louder annoyed "excuse me". He then proceeded to rather forcefully grope her. She grabbed his wrist, spun and did one of those over-the-shoulder flips and put him on the ground, where she heard something break, and as soon as the guy got his breath back, he started screaming in pain. She turned so that her back was to me and pulled her top slightly aside to reveal where his grip on her had been. He had bruised her, leaving clear finger and thumb prints, according to what she told me later. Officer 1 had her sit down and then proceeded to take my side of the story. I explained what the story was as I knew it, what I heard then saw, and showed him the videotape evidence. And sure enough, you could clearly see the guy lean in, her face sort of crinkles in an annoyed expression, the grab and the flip. She was clearly in self-defense. At this point, the paramedics were working on the guy. He had a huge lump on his head where it hit the floor, and his arm, the one he grabbed her with, was broken. Apparently, he came down on the tiled concrete floor pretty badly. Officer 2 came in to report to Officer 1, who I guess was a higher ranking, I don't know, but he says Grabby said that she grabbed him out of the blue and just flipped him and broke his arm because he wouldn't get out of the way fast enough. Long story short, he ended up escorted to the hospital by police to get his arm set and then arrested for intimate assault. Add to that battery, he left bruises and given a false police report. Maria was saying she didn't want to press charges, that she already hurt him. However, this type of assault, the charges are automatic here. The fallout for Grabby? He was charged and convicted on all accounts through a plea deal. He never went to court as the evidence was pretty overwhelming. He was banned for life from that store, fired from his job at the university, placed on an intimate offender registry, ended up divorced as his wife was none too happy about what he did. At last we knew he was a guest of the state for at least 5 years. So at least we never had to testify. I might have left out one critical detail here, somewhat intentionally. Maria was a physical education major, who was also a black belt. Not my story, but a friend who passed a few years back who loved to tell this. I have changed the names. I'll try my best to remember the details, as it was usually told over one too many beers. As such, I'm sure it has been embellished a bit, but I'll try to remain true to the version I heard. Also, I have no law enforcement background, so if there are technical inaccuracies in process or terminology described here, that is the fault of my interpretation. Feel free to correct me. Every cop has a million stories, but when one warrants endless repetition, you know the people in that story are special kind of stupid. This is one such story. For context, let's preface this with a retelling of an old joke. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. Two guys are driving down the road and fly by a cop at 50 over the speed limit. The cop's lights go on and they pull over. The driver unrolls his window and the cop tells the men to exit the vehicle and stand to the side. They comply and the cop slaps the driver. The cop says, "Sir, do you know why I slapped you?" "Yes, officer. I was driving too fast." The cop then slaps the passenger. "What the hell? Why did you slap me?" "He was driving. I thought I'd grant your wish." "What?" "We both know the second you guys pull away, you turn to your buddy and say, 'Man, I wish he had tried that crab with me.' The joke is amusing because we all know that attitude. Everyone has a backbone when they are not the one dealing with the cops. This is something Bill exploited well. Bill was in law enforcement. Part of his job could be thought of as lead generation, looking for illicit goods being transported, largely coming out of Native American reservations. I know meth was a common focus, or knockoff prescription drugs, car parts from chopped cars, and so on. He had a pretty reliable system for gaining intel. He'd sit at truck stop diners in plain clothes, looking like a trucker, and have a buddy in uniform give him a hard time in front of everyone else. Questions like, "Is the rig yours? Where are you coming from? I thought I saw you miss a weigh-in." Always in the aggressive cop tone, Bill would loudly protest that he wasn't a driver of whatever random truck his cop buddy pointed to, which was true. This feigned theatrical harassment would go on for a while, and the uniformed cop would leave. Unfallingly, the moment the cop left, someone would walk up to Bill and say, "Man, I can't believe these pigs," and then readily exchange stories about their own run-ins with law enforcement. This is not really undercover work. Mostly, it was just his way of screwing around on his lunch break. Eat a meal at a diner, see if anyone is dumb enough to take the bait, and many were. Filled with a full sense of bravado, many would walk up to Bill and tell him how they would have handled the cops, give him pointers on how to evade cops, and in the process, disclose a lot of information about their own shady dealings. As he told it, he'd snag it at least one good lead a month, doing this a couple times a week at various truck stops. There was a guy who we will call Tweaker Travis, not the sharpest kid, but he was a regular, a small-time runner who they normally wouldn't even bother with. He mostly just moved cartons of cigarettes for resale without the tax stamp of the res, maybe 20 to 30 a day, maybe a bit of pot. Illegal, but that's not what they were fishing for. They might have ignored him completely, except Tweaker Travis has seen Bill get shaken down by several different cops over the past few months, and in his myth-addled mind had come to the conclusion that anyone getting that much police attention but never getting arrested must be well connected in the criminal underworld, and he wanted in. So what does Travis do? He writes up a resume of his criminal job experience, complete with dates and references, and hands it to Bill. Yes, he put his criminal jacket in resume form, properly formatted and everything, complete with names and phone numbers to all his petty crime buddies, and handed it to a cop. In it, he confessed to several local burglaries, and Bill was forced to arrest him. Normally, when the badge and handcuffs came out, most people would realize they'd done messing up, but not our boy Travis. At first, he laughed. "Come on, man, quit screwing around. I know you ain't no cop." The handcuffs go on and they walk toward the police car. But weaker Travis is falling deeper into denial. He's seen too many movies, and fiction and reality are pretty blurred in his current state of mind. "Whoa, you guys have the cops on your payroll? Man, I knew you were connected, but I had no idea you had that kind of pull around here. So what are you guys moving, huh?" Travis in the back of the car, Bill is in the front, obviously, and they are driving down the road to the police station. "So hey man, where are we going? Do I have to do an interview or something to start running for you guys? Are you going to meet some bosses? The whole handcuff thing, is that like some kind of initiation?" Nobody gets a word in with this guy. He's talking a million words a minute in typical tweaker fashion. They are halfway through booking him in before he begins to suspect something is wrong. Finally, he pauses for a moment and goes silent as the gravity of what's happening begins to sink in. At this point, it's been about 45 minutes since the whole fiasco began, and Bill can finally get a word in. In his best cop voice, Bill explains, "Dude, you need to shut up now and call a lawyer. This is not a test or an initiation. I showed you a real badge, handcuffed you, put you in a police cruiser, and drove you to the police station." "Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. You're not a cop. You don't work here." "Yes, I'm a cop. I showed you my badge." "Wait, why am I under arrest? You didn't tell me you were a cop. This is an entrapment." Cue the next 16 hours of "this is entrapment" over and over again. One of the other cops there after Bill left apparently recorded it and made it into a techno remix that became the unofficial department ringtone for a while, before it was officially deemed unprofessional, potentially problematic legally, but funny as hell in a memo. If anyone reading this has a copy, please PM me. I would love to post it and would protect my source. It would have been Bill's birthday next month, and I know his kids would love a copy of it. While in college, I had a summer job in a place that fabricated steel tubing. I was part of a two-man team that packed the finished goods into boxes for shipment. To get them from our workstation to the loading dock, there was a heavy-duty hoist that rode on a monorail on the ceiling. To control it, there was a plastic switch box hanging from a cable. It was old and took a lot of abuse. About once a week, the switch would stop working. My co-worker was a guy named Dave who was studying electrical engineering. We got along pretty well and had developed a system for when the hoist didn't work. I would walk across the shop to the electrical panel, flip the breaker that controlled the hoist, and let out a loud whistle. He would open up the switch box, clean out all the crud, make sure the wires were connected, reassemble the box and whistle. That was my signal to reset the breaker and get back to work. One day we were very busy processing a big order from an important customer. Our foreman, Harry, who resented the college kids who worked there, was running around yelling at everyone to work faster and get off our forking butts. And of course he was right by me when the hoist stopped. I took off for the breaker panel while Dave fetched the screwdriver. And Harry started screaming, "Where are you going? We have to get the hoist fixed." I told him I was going to flip the breaker while Dave fixed the switch. He told me we cannot afford to wait all day for me to walk across the shop and mess around with a breaker. He turned to Dave and said, "Just fix the switch." Dave said he would do that as soon as the power was off. But as long as power was on, he wasn't going anywhere near it. Harry started ranting about the college kids he had to deal with and the freaking jerks who think they know so much. It was his job to show us how things work in real world. Dave and I just stood there pretty much ignoring him. We knew that there wasn't much he could do, and neither of us was going to risk injury for $2.63 an hour. When Harry finally realized that we weren't going to fold, he told Dave to give him the screwdriver. I asked him if he was sure he didn't want me to cut the power. "Just give me the screwdriver." "Okay, you win." He got the cover off without incident, then started poking around inside the box. And he triumphantly showed us that the wire had come off the screw and that you don't need a degree in electrical engineering. Zap! The shock knocked him on his butt. The switch was fried and the tip of the screwdriver had a large divot. The general manager came running out of his office to see what the commotion was. By this time, Harry had recovered, but had a nasty burn on his hand. The GM had another guy drive him to the ER. He told Dave and me to just hang out until he got the switch fixed, this time by a real electrician. That took most of the day. The gym asked us if we could do him a favor and work late to get this order out, and we agreed. A little overtime is always welcome. It didn't take very long. It's funny how much better things run when you have equipment that actually works, and no foreman screaming at you. As we were punching out, the GM thanked us and gave us each $50. For the rest of the summer, Harry didn't mess with us again. This is a story of my nephew at the age of 8, a malicious compliance prodigy. My sister has 3 kids, great kids, but often tricky. Particularly my nephew. He is a lovable, smart little jerk. They each were given certain chores throughout growing up. And at age 8, nephew was given the task of emptying the cutlery from the dishwasher in the evening. One day my sister sent a photo of the cutlery basket that has a vegetable peeler, whisk and some other assorted items left in it. Apparently nephew wandered off and the conversation went as follows. My sister tells him, "You need to finish emptying the dishwasher." And he tells her, "It's done. We said you have to empty the basket." "No, you said I had to put away the cutlery." "I put away all the cutlery." Sister told me she realized she had in fact told him to put away the cutlery and was inwardly laughing while outwardly furious. Nephew insisted that peelers and so on were not cutlery and so did not fall within his chore remit. From then on, his chore was empty the cutlery basket, which he fully complied with. Nephew is now an awesome, hilarious teen who, I strongly believe, would do well as a lawyer. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.